Greetings, Prime Evils. Welcome back to Disenthrall. I want to give you some thoughts from a CTO's perspective, an entrepreneur's perspective on the business models of modern video games and how they're monetizing themselves. And I want to do it in the context of the latest Diablo game, which has been released as a mobile game. It is Diablo Immortal. I mean Immortal. Everybody's calling it Immoral because of how they're monetizing the game, how they're making money from the game. It's a free game. Anyone can download it, put it on their phone, and start playing. It's the problem people are having with it is after that fact. It's how they're making money from people, and it's being called pay to win. I won't go into a long diatribe on pay to win. Yes, I will. No, I won't. For those that don't know, pay to win are video games where you can pay them for items or in-game content that makes you able to win the game easier. It's especially prevalent and important in competitive PvP, player versus player, where you're fighting against other players. If you're able to spend a bunch of money and make your character in the game more powerful than the other players, well, that haven't or that can't spend that money, then that's seen as a fatal flaw, as a thing that should make a game be utterly ignored and rated into the basement, or brigaded into the basement. And I don't disagree. If you have a player versus player game and so-called whales, what are whales? Whales I guess it's a disparaging name for people with money that play the games. They come in and they're able to quickly buy or spend money to buy whatever items they want in the game. If they're able to come in and buy items that make them able to beat all the other players at the game, well, that's seen as kind of cheating, or rightfully seen as unfair. Like you don't want to play a game in which the one with the most money wins. What fun is that? That's dumb. And there are games like that exist. And people rage at them nonstop. And there's another way that people monetize. They allow people to pay to accelerate or avoid the grind. What is the grind? Well, the grind is like actions that you take in game to mine resources or to gather items that you need to make your character more powerful. And this is seen as less of a mortal sin because anybody can do that if they just invest enough time into the game. If they just play the game enough, then they can get all the same items as the people that spend money to buy those items immediately can. So it's kind of a more level playing field. This whole thing comes, I think it's two-pronged. Number one, I think game companies have realized that they can get a lot more money out of the average person with these kind of give the game away for free and then nickel and dime people on a bunch of small transactions after the game comes out. After they're already playing and they're invested in their character and they're having a good time, it's easier to say, hey, give me $2 for this and $1 for that and $5 for that. It'll enhance your gaming experience. And then over, time, they might end up making more money on average than they would have otherwise. There's another argument, though. There's another situation. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. But there's another situation in which people need to realize that these games cost a lot of money to make. A lot of money to make. And they have to make that money back. And the government is actively destroying our economy through inflation. I consider it treasonous at this point, the levels of inflation that is going on towards all currencies, but to the US dollar specifically. And I want to illustrate what's happening here. That is a wasp. Just in my house, flew by in front of my face. That's wild. Okay. Gonna have to figure that out. This might get exciting. Okay, so I want to illustrate that video games, even the ones that you pay for, not even the free-to-play ones, but video games still cost $60, like a prime AAA title, the best titles, $59.99. That's they try and upsell you, of course, on all the extras to get the director's cut or the fancy editions or the season passes and all this other stuff. But it's still $60. You can still get the game for $60. And I want to point out that these companies are having to find new ways to get money out of people for a very real reason. So let's just go through it, right? So there's this meme going around that Diablo is the new Diablo Immortal is actually Diablo Immoral. Why is that? Well, it's kind of funny. They tweeted recently that this is the most successful Diablo game ever released in Blizzard's history. I think Blizzard is actually my least favorite game company by a long shot. I think they're terrible. But anyway, sorry. So this is the most successful Diablo ever. 10 million installs within like the first week of them releasing this game. Also, they kind of failed to mention that it was the first free-to-play Diablo, so anybody could just download it for free. Maybe that's why it got so many in the first week. But anyway, I want to read a little bit through this article here about what people are saying about Diablo Immortal, and then I want to analyze how games are being monetized right now. Diablo Immortal is a monument to everything wrong with modern gaming. A typical mobile cash grab with the Diablo logo haphazardly affixed to it. Because the controversy surrounding Diablo Immortal's notorious announcement was so long ago, 4 years ago in fact, I guess I just assumed that the crappy mobile game had already been released sometime in the last few years. I was surprised when I began seeing ads for the game all over my social media pages, and even more surprised to learn that Activision Blizzard has only just finished pushing this absolute turd of a game out of its corporate anus. It could stand as a monument to everything that's wrong about the modern gaming and the state of the video games industry. It seems to be desperately chasing every cash-grabbing trend going, degrading a brand that has been part of the gaming landscape for more than a quarter of a century. It's a contemptible title, one whose inevitable failure I will genuinely be celebrating. You may have heard this figure floating around during conversations about Diablo Immortal. $110,000. For those of us in the UK, that equates to over £90,000, and according to analysis done by Bellular News, it's the total cost of fully upgrading a player's in-game character. This figure is based on the fact that many of the game's upgrades aren't able to be unlocked by gameplay and are only available via loot boxes. Loot boxes are typically things that you pay for to get a random chance at a random piece of loot. There are some games out there that take the piss when it comes to how much they cost. Strategy games from developer Paradox Interactive are notorious for their expansions, DLC, and add-ons, the combined cost of which can push some of their biggest titles to well in excess of £300. Anyway, it goes on to talk about the money-grubbing strategies that they use and how you can't even get to all the content in the game unless you actually spend real money. So part of the game is locked behind a paywall. And this is fueling the game's abysmal score. Turns out, I think it has the lowest Metacritic score of any Diablo game ever, as of right now. The critics gave it a 63. Users have given it, I think it currently sits at 0.2? No, I think that's still too high. Hold on, I have another story here with information on that. Yeah, lowest Metacritic score ever. It has a user score of 0.5 out of 10 based on 2,500 user ratings. I think people are... And why is that? Why is that? Okay, because how you pay for games is changing. It's not the same as it was. Might not ever be the same again. And I think the fiat money, the fiat currency is driving a big part of why this is. At least half of it. And so there's this image that I'm showing you right now where they show you all of the Diablo games, or Diablo 1, Diablo 2, and the expansions, Diablo 3 and the expansions, altogether would have cost you a total of $249. You get 3 complete games, 4 expansions, 10,000 plus hours of gameplay, and they compare that to Diablo Immoral, where $250 will get you 110 legendary crests, 110 attempts at getting a 5 out of 5 quality, a high quality gem item in the game, which is like a 0.045%, and about 150 minutes of gameplay doing the rift clears. And so it's a little disingenuous, but that's kind of where this is all coming from. I want to point out a couple other games that are monetized completely differently than normal games. One is this is the one I play. I play a lot of Warframe lately. This is a mostly PvE game where you don't fight other players, but it's monetized by you constantly paying for an in-game currency called Platinum, which you can then use to do all sorts of things that eliminate the need to grind, which means play the game in these long, repetitive, boring ways to get the resources that you need to progress your character's power level, let's say. And then let's just move on a little bit. Lost Ark is another one. They have moved away from this model where you need to buy a video game, and every so often you can buy like a season pass to get upgrades and little knickknacks and things like that. My point is, games are monetized totally different now. And the reason I think is because the amount of money needed to create a game has gone up. It's gone up because games are fancier now. It's also gone up because the dollar is worth almost nothing compared to what it was. And I did a quick calculation using this inflation calculator that I think will highlight what I'm trying to talk about here. So if we say in 2000, I spent 2000 is when the $60 price point for video games kind of first started happening. It was with like the PS2 and the Xbox 360. That's when games started to cost $60. People thought, I mean, it was just outrageous. $60 for a video game? This is when it went up from $50, which was the previous price point for most video games. $60 for a video game. In 2022, $60 is $101.85 because of inflation. So if you buy a game today for $60, let's do the math on that. Let's do the reverse math on that. Let's see, how do we do that? If in 2022 we spent $60, will this work in reverse? Let's see. That game would have been $35 in 2000, going back the other direction. So you can see what my point is. If they sold games like they always have, they're now going to be getting $35 for their game instead of $60 in modern money. Or they would have to charge $100 for a game. $100 for a video game? Are you insane? Who would want to pay $100 for a video game? Not very many people. But what they might pay is, $20 for a game. And then every, couple months, maybe another $15 for an expansion, or $5 here and there over time, adding up over the course of weeks and months to $100. They're still trying to get their money. They still have to try and get their money. They just got to do it in different ways because inflation has made the number seem insane. And it is insane, but so is inflation. And another thing, the free-to-play games. People complain so much about free-to-play games, and a lot of it is deserved. But they're free. You're getting something that took someone a lot of time and effort and resources to create. You're putting it on your device, and you're getting to do things with it for free. You put in nothing. You need to chill a little bit on some of the criticisms. If they're charging some people that choose to do extra things in the game that you can't do, in the case of like Diablo Immortal, where you can't even see and experience all the game's content unless you pay real money, well, you didn't pay anything for it to begin with. So what are you complaining about? They want money. They need money, otherwise their games wouldn't exist. I just never hear anyone taking up this side of the discussion, so that's going to be me today. They have to have money. They have to have income to pay for the development of these games. And inflation is screwing all of us. And so there's all these different tricks that they're trying to figure out to still get the money that they need to continue developing these games. If it's a free game, then be happy with what you get. And if you want to pay for something to get farther into that free content that you didn't pay for, fine, be happy with that too. The only time it would be wrong is if you bought the game up front, let's say for $60, and then still some of the content was locked behind something that you had to pay more money for. And even then, you know it going in. If you bought the game you bought to get access to the content you got access to when you paid the $60 for it, be happy. And if they release additional content and want more money for it, well, take it or leave it. And if they're really in... I know that I'm excusing a lot of bad actors here, and that's not my intention. If a company is being really kind of conniving and obnoxious with this, give them a low rating and go play something else. And that market message will tell them that the way they're trying to make income is wrong. And that will change how they function faster than all the complaints on the internet and calling them immoral. Is Diablo Immortal immoral? Absolutely not. They're just trying to find ways to get money so they can keep making games in this insane market that exists now. And this will be the only time probably that I ever defend Blizzard Entertainment, because I have a lot of complaints about them. But in this, it's not immoral. Do you feel that it's shitty? That's up to you. And if you do, don't buy the game, or don't play the game. Don't buy the trinkets. Go do something else. Give it a low rating. You know, leave your reviews or whatever. But at least stay rational about it. Keep a level head about it. They have to make money, by hook or by crook. And people don't like paying for mobile games. They like getting mobile games for free. That's just the nature of the mobile gaming industry. All right. That's what I had to say on that. Inflation is treason. Spread the word.